You ever hear something and instantly wish you hadn't? That's how this whole thing started. It was late. One of those nights where the air feels heavy, like the darkness itself is pressing against the windows. Small town Ohio. Midnight had passed. The streets were empty, the sky was moonless, and the only sound in the police dispatch office was the quiet hum of the fluorescent lights overhead. Karen had been doing this job for years. Night shifts were usually quiet. Drunks getting lost, couples fighting too loud, the occasional accident. Nothing she couldn't handle. She was leaning back in her chair, scrolling through last week's call reports, sipping coffee that had gone cold hours ago. She didn't even hear the phone at first. It wasn't the usual sharp ring, it was one single slow chime, and then silence. Almost like the system glitched. But then the second ring came. She straightened up, cleared her throat, and hit the line. 911, what's your emergency? Silence. The kind of silence that feels alive. She thought maybe the line dropped, but then, so faint she almost missed it, came breathing. It wasn't the rushed panic you'd expect from someone in trouble. It was slow, careful, like whoever was on the other end didn't want to be heard. Karen said it again, a little sharper. Hello, this is 911. Can you speak up? Then a voice, a man's voice, shaky. It's here, Karen frowned. What's here, sir? It's inside my house. Her pulse picked up. She started typing, pulling up the location data from the call. Okay, stay calm. I'm sending officers right now. Can you tell me where in the house you are? The man's breathing quickened and his voice dropped to almost a whisper. It's not human. Karen froze for just a second. That wasn't something you hear on a normal call. She kept her voice even. Sir, what do you mean, not human? Is this a person or... Please, don't hang up. Then it happened. The sound came through so loud she had to pull the headset away. It was like claws, long, hard, dragging across a steel door. The sound wasn't just loud, it felt wrong, like it was vibrating inside her skull. Karen blinked, trying to think. Maybe the guy had an intruder armed with a weapon. Maybe he was hiding. Maybe the sound was coming from a locked door being forced open. But before she could speak again, another sound came. It wasn't the man. This breathing was different, heavy, wet. Each inhale rattled like lungs that shouldn't be working were forcing air through them. It was too close to the microphone, like whatever was making it was leaning right over the phone. Karen tried to keep him calm. Sir, can you tell me your name? Where exactly in the house are you right now? The man whispered. I'm in the closet, upstairs. His voice cracked. It's standing in the hallway. It knows I'm here. Karen felt a prickle at the back of her neck. She glanced at the screen. The location was coming through. Old farmhouse on the edge of town. Nearest unit was only 3 minutes away. She typed a code for immediate response. Hit enter. All right, sir, officers are almost there. Stay on the line with me. There was a long pause. The man's breathing got quieter. The heavy breathing from the other end stayed exactly the same. Slow, steady, like it wasn't moving at all. Karen leaned closer to her mic. Sir, can you describe what you're seeing? Another pause. Then, barely audible. It's smiling. The words hit her like ice water. She didn't respond right away. Her mouth had gone dry. She wasn't sure why. Maybe it was the way he said it. Flat, certain, like he was describing the color of a wall. Then the line crackled, sharp pops of static like an old radio struggling for signal. Through the static, she thought she heard something else. Another voice. Not the man's. Low, whispering, guttural, like it was speaking through a throat full of water. She couldn't make out the words, but the tone, it was mocking. Karen's instincts told her to get off the line. Something about this call felt wrong. Not in the normal sense. Wrong in a way that made her feel like just hearing it was a mistake. But she couldn't, not when someone might be in real danger. Sir, the police are almost there. I need you to... A sudden noise cut her off. The man inhaled sharply. It's opening the door. Karen's fingers hovered over the keyboard. She was ready to type any detail for the officers. Stay quiet, sir. Help is... The man's voice turned into a trembling whisper. I can see its hands. Karen didn't want to ask, but she did. What do they look like? He didn't answer right away. I heard him crying softly. Then, between sobs, too many fingers. Something moved on the other end, a quick, wet shuffle, followed by that metal scraping sound again, only shorter this time, like claws brushing a doorframe. Karen's heartbeat thundered in her ears. She glanced at the clock. The officer should have been there by now. Sir, I hear something moving. Can you... The line erupted with noise, static, metal, breathing, all layered together until it was just a wall of sound, and then silence. The kind of silence you know something's still there, waiting? Karen said softly, Sir? Nothing. Sir, are you... Then, clear as day, right in her ear, you shouldn't be listening. Karen yanked the headset off, heart slamming in her chest. But the sound was still there, faint, coming from the phone's speaker even though she wasn't touching it. And that's when the radio on her desk crackled, an officer's voice, urgent. We're at the address. House is empty.
Karen tried to keep him talking. Her training told her to keep the victim engaged, keep them focused, buy time until help arrives. But before she could get the next question out, the line began to crackle. Not the normal light interference. This was deep, jagged static, the kind that makes you instinctively pull your ear away from the headset. She almost missed it at first, but his voice was still in there somewhere, faint, like he'd been pushed far down a tunnel. It's looking at me. The words were drawn out, like it took everything in him just to get them out. And then, under his voice, something else began to bleed through. It wasn't feedback. It wasn't background noise. It was a second voice. Thick, wet, almost gurgling. Each syllable seemed to drag on like the mouth making them was too wide, too heavy. Karen couldn't understand the words, but she knew it wasn't human. Her skin prickled. She typed the address again, confirming the units were still en route. She keyed the mic to the responding officers, voice tight but steady. Be advised, caller reports unknown intruder inside, not acting normal. She stopped herself before saying not human. No cop wanted to hear that over the radio. The static pulsed, surging in waves. The man's voice came and went, phrases breaking apart mid-word. Don't open eyes. And then, the whisper again, clearer this time, but speaking in some rhythm that made her stomach turn, like it wasn't meant for human ears. Karen pressed the headset tighter, forcing herself to listen. Every instinct screamed to take it off, to cut the line, but she didn't. She needed to know if he was still alive. Then, without warning, the static vanished. And for a single breath, there was nothing. No man, no whisper, just dead air. The hair on Karen's arm stood up. She said, Sir, are you still there? What answered wasn't his voice. It was a sound she couldn't place at first. A slow, deliberate tapping, like someone was dragging their fingernail across the inside of the phone's microphone. She pulled the mic away from her mouth and motioned to the other dispatcher on shift. Get the sergeant, now! Her coworker looked confused, but the expression changed to alarm when he saw her face. He left without a word. She brought the headset back just in time to hear the man's voice again, loud enough to make her flinch. It's inside the closet with me. Karen's pulse kicked. Sir, officers are almost there. Can you see it? No, he said, voice breaking, but I can smell it. Before she could ask what it smelled like, that whispering voice cut back in, stronger now, and this time it said something in English. Not loud, not even aggressive, but so close she could hear the wetness in its throat. You don't belong here." Karen's chest went tight. She slammed the button for the officer channel. Unit 12 status check. Are you on scene yet? 10 seconds out." The man on the phone started sobbing quietly, whispering over and over, "It knows you're here. It knows." Karen's stomach dropped. "What does that mean, it knows I'm here?" He didn't answer. Then in the faint background, she heard footsteps. Not hurried, not cautious, just slow, measured steps, like someone enjoying the walk. The man whimpered, muffling his voice like he was covering his mouth. "It's not walking right. Its feet, they point the wrong way." Karen swallowed hard, forcing her voice to stay calm. "Okay, sir, I need you to stay absolutely quiet. Officers will..." The line went sharp again, static screaming in her ears. But this time, the static wasn't alone. Underneath it, something like laughter. Not the man's, and not joyful. It was hollow, broken, like someone trying to mimic laughter after hearing it for the first time. She could barely hear the officer's voice over the noise when the radio crackled. "Dispatch, we're on scene. Doors wide open." Karen gripped the mic. "Be advised, suspect is still inside. Caller is upstairs, possibly in a closet." A long pause. Then, "Negative, dispatch. House is... there's nothing in here." She frowned. "What do you mean, nothing?" Another pause. Longer this time. "I mean, nothing. No furniture, no boxes, no curtains. Just floors and walls. Place looks like nobody's lived here in years." She turned back to her screen. The call trace showed the number had been registered to that address for the past 8 years. A landline. "Dispatch?" The officer's voice came back, quieter, almost like he was covering his radio. "You said the guy was upstairs?" Karen's eyes locked on the call timer. The man was still on the line. "Affirmative." "Then you should come listen to this." In her ear, the man's voice suddenly rose to a shout. "It's behind you!" The officer's radios erupted with noise at the same time, a deep echoing thud like something heavy dropping onto the floor right next to the mic. One of the officers swore over the radio, "Jesus! Movement upstairs! We're going..." His voice cut out. Karen called to them over and over, but only got static. She turned back to her headset. "Sir, can you hear me? What's happening now?" The line hissed softly. Then, as if leaning right against the mic, the whispering voice said, "Wrong house." The call disconnected. She stared at the screen. The call timer froze, then vanished. The number, not just off the system, erased, like it had never existed. Her coworker came back with the sergeant and Karen told them what happened. They both looked at her like maybe she was just tired, stress, too much caffeine. But when the officers returned an hour later, they refused to talk about what they found or didn't find. One of them wouldn't even meet her eyes. And that night, as Karen drove home, her cell phone lit up in the passenger seat. Unknown number. She didn't answer. It rang 3 times, stopped, and then a voicemail notification popped up. When she played it, there was no voice, no breathing, just static. And in the middle of it, a single, wet whisper. "Now, I know your voice."
Usually, 911 calls are locked away. Secure server. Time-stamped, cataloged, archived. Karen had worked in dispatch long enough to know you could dig up a call from 10 years ago in less than 30 seconds. So when she went back to find that call, she wasn't expecting trouble. She sat down at the console, typed in the date, the time, the number. And there it was, the file name, sitting exactly where it should be. But when she clicked it, silence. Not muted, not corrupted, just nothing. She scrubbed forward, 10 minutes of dead air. The waveform on the screen was flat, like the call never happened. Karen leaned back in her chair, heart tapping at her ribs. She knew she'd heard it. Every second of it was still burned into her brain. The man's voice, the claws on metal, that wet whisper. It wasn't the kind of thing you forget. She tried the backup server. Same thing. The file was there, but it wasn't. Like it was just a shell, the skin of the call without the body. She asked tech support if they'd pulled it for review. They hadn't. They swore the log showed no deletion, no edits, nothing out of place. Sometimes files just glitch. Bad packet transfer. Could be nothing. Karen didn't believe that. This wasn't nothing. For weeks, she couldn't get the call out of her head. She'd be making dinner and she'd think she heard that breathing behind her. She'd wake up at 3 in the morning, sure her phone was ringing, but when she checked, it wasn't. Then one Monday morning, she came in early for shift change. Her desk was dark, just how she'd left it the night before. Except, there was something sitting in the middle of it. A plain manila envelope, no markings, no return address. She looked around the room. Only one other dispatcher was in yet, halfway across the floor with headphones on. No one seemed to notice. Karen sat down, slid the envelope toward her, opened the flap. Inside was a single USB drive. No note. She turned it over in her fingers, black plastic, scratched up with a small red sticker on one side, no label. Her gut told her not to plug it in, but she did. The drive had one file on it, audio log 0713.wav. She clicked it before she could think twice. The moment it started, her skin crawled. It was the call, every second of it, but not how she remembered. This time, the breathing was louder, too loud. It wasn't just in her ears, it felt like it was inside her head, like it was synced to her own breathing, slowing it down, forcing it into the same rhythm. She sat frozen, staring at the waveform scrolling by. She recognized the man's voice, trembling, whispering for her not to hang up, the scraping metal, the closet door creaking. But then, something she didn't remember happened. After the man said, "It's smiling," there was a pause, a long one. And in that pause, the whisper came through. Clear, deliberate. "You picked up the phone. Now it knows your voice." Karen's whole body cold. She yanked her headset off, hit stop, but the audio kept playing. She tried to close the file. The cursor froze. The screen flickered, black, then back to normal. And then, faint but unmistakable, the whisper again. "Don't stop now." Karen pulled the USB, dropped it back into the envelope. She wanted to throw it in the trash, burn it, but instead, she locked it in her dress drawer and told herself she'd deal with it later. That night, she dreamed about the call. Only it wasn't the man in the closet anymore, it was her. She was crouched in the dark, holding a phone to her ear, and on the other end was that breathing. She couldn't hang up. Every time she tried, the line would stretch like a cord around her neck, pulling tighter. She woke up gasping, the faint smell of wet wood in her room. The next day, she came in to find the envelope gone. She asked around, but no one had touched her desk. No cleaners, no techs. By the end of the week, she'd convinced herself, maybe she imagined it. Stress, overwork, a nightmare bleeding into memory. Then, she got the call. Not at work, on her personal cell. Unknown number. She answered without thinking. "Hello." Static. And then, her own voice, from the recording, saying, "911, what's your emergency?" She hung up so fast the phone slipped from her hand and hit the floor, but before it went dark,
She swore she saw the caller ID change from unknown to a single word. Listen. That night she didn't sleep. Every time she closed her eyes, she heard it. That whisper, that breathing. And somewhere in the rhythm of it, she realized something. The voice had changed. It wasn't the man's anymore. It wasn't whatever was in his house. It was hers.
A month later, Karen was gone. Just like that. No farewell party, no big announcement, just a short email to HR saying she was burned out and needed to focus on her health. She told most of her coworkers the same thing, but the ones who knew her best didn't buy it. Her closest friend, Amanda, said she'd never seen Karen like this. She'd stopped answering calls after sunset. She disconnected her landline. She even started putting her cell phone in a metal cookie tin at night, claiming it kept the signal out. Amanda laughed at first, but the way Karen said it didn't sound like a joke. The strangest part was the headset, the same one she'd used the night of the call. Karen had taken it home with her when she left the job, tucked it in the back of her closet. She told Amanda she kept it there because it still has him in it. Amanda thought she meant sentimentally, like she couldn't stop thinking about the man on the line, but Karen shook her head. Not him, the other one. Every few nights, she swore she heard breathing coming from the closet. Slow, wet, the same rhythm from the call. She'd lie there in bed, staring at the door, hearing it through the walls. She tried throwing a blanket over the headset. She tried sealing it in a box, but somehow the sound always seeped out. Then came the thing that made Karen realize it wasn't just her. Two other dispatchers, one in Oregon, one in Florida, reported hearing the same exact voice on different calls in the same week. Karen's old coworker texted her the details. Both cases were different. One was a domestic disturbance, the other a missing hiker. But in both, somewhere in the middle of the call, a second voice came through, a deep, wet whisper saying something that made the hair on your arms stand up. One dispatcher swore the voice said, "You're next." The other said it repeated her name, a name the caller shouldn't have known. Karen told Amanda, "It's moving." Amanda asked what she meant. Karen said, "It doesn't stay in one place. It travels the lines. Once it knows your voice, it can find you anywhere." That night, Karen's cell phone lit up while she was brushing her teeth. She didn't recognize the number. She let it go to voicemail. When she checked it later, there was nothing but breathing. Not background noise, not accidental mic pickup. This was deliberate. Too close. She deleted the message immediately, but her phone froze for a second before going back to the home screen. And when it did, the wallpaper had changed. Instead of her dog, it was just black, with one word in red text at the bottom. Listen. She threw the phone in the cookie tin and shoved it under her bed. The next morning, she woke to find the tin sitting on her nightstand. Her phone was on top of it. The screen was on. There was a new voicemail. She didn't play it. Amanda tried to convince her to get rid of the headset. "Throw it out, smash it, burn it. I don't care. Just get it out of your house." Karen shook her head. "That's not how this works. You can't throw away a doorway." She explained that after the call, she started hearing her own voice in places it didn't belong, faintly on the TV when it wasn't tuned to anything, coming from her car radio when it was off, even in the static between stations, always the same line. 911, what's your emergency? She'd started unplugging everything in her apartment at night. No TV, no radio, no internet. But still, the voice found ways in. One night she heard it coming from her kitchen, not from any device, from her old landline handset sitting in a drawer. The cord wasn't even plugged in. She picked it up, hands shaking. There was nothing for a moment. Then faintly, "I know you're holding me." She dropped it back into the drawer and slammed it shut. By the end of the month, Amanda stopped hearing from her. No texts, no calls, no social media updates. She drove to her apartment. The blinds were closed, the lights off. When Amanda knocked, there was no answer, but she swore she could hear something on the other side of the door. Not footsteps, not movement, just breathing. And when she leaned closer, a voice whispered through the wood,
You shouldn't be here.
If you think this is just another creepy story, maybe you're right. But here's the thing. The local police department never released that call to the public. No leaks, no press coverage, no chance for it to spread. And yet, somehow, a copy of it keeps showing up online. It's never posted from the same account twice, never in the same format. Sometimes it's an audio file with no description. Sometimes it's hidden inside a random video, just a faint voice under the background music. Sometimes it's disguised as a phone ringtone. But it's always the same. A man whispering, "It's here. It's inside my house." Then the sound of nails scraping on metal. Then that breathing. People claim it's just an urban legend, an ARG, a prank. But then there are the ones who swear they listened to the whole thing. And that's when it started. It doesn't happen right away, not the first night, sometimes not even the first week. But sooner or later, your phone will ring. It'll be in the middle of the night when you're half asleep. You'll look at the screen and see a number you don't recognize. And if you answer, you'll hear it. That same slow, wet breathing. Some say it never stops after that it follows you from phone to phone, that it starts showing up in other places, behind you when you're brushing your teeth, in the passenger seat when you're driving alone at night. One girl posted about it on Reddit, said she answered the call, listened for maybe 30 seconds, and hung up. The next day, she got a text message with an audio clip attached. When she played it, it was her own voice saying, "911, what's your emergency?" She swore she never recorded herself saying that. Another guy said his Alexa started repeating the breathing at 3:17 every morning, no matter where he put it, no matter if it was unplugged. He smashed it with a hammer. It didn't help. And here's the worst part. You don't even have to answer the call for it to find you. There are stories of people who heard their phone ring in the middle of the night, and when they didn't pick up, it rang again, and again, and again, until finally the ringer just stopped. But the breathing started. I'm not telling you to go looking for that recording. I'm telling you, if your phone rings at night and there's nothing but breathing on the other end, hang up. Because once you pick up, it knows your voice. And once it knows your voice, it can call you back, anytime, anywhere. Some say that's how it spreads, through voices. That's why the recording keeps reappearing, why it's always hidden in something else, because every time someone listens, every time someone hears that whisper, it's like giving it a copy of yourself. You're probably thinking this is all just a story. That's fine. But maybe tonight, when you're in bed and you hear your phone buzzing on the nightstand, you'll remember this. And maybe you'll think twice before you answer. Because the truth is, this thing doesn't care if you believe in it or not. It only cares if you pick up. Now, if you've ever had something like this happen to you, a strange call, a voice you can't explain, breathing that followed you from one place to another, I want to hear about it. Send me your true horror experiences. You can stay anonymous if you want. Just email them to me or drop them in the comments, because maybe your story is the next one I tell here.